All right, we're back, and we're now traveling a little over 2 hours south to get back into nature, particularly in the Freetown-Fall River National Forest. The forest is located between the city of Fall River and the towns of Freetown and Lakeville. It's a little bit south of the Bridgewater Triangle. Won't be covering that particular one in this episode, but if you're ever interested, a lot of crazy stuff supposedly happens there. Think Bermuda Triangle, but in Massachusetts. Fall River is probably best known for being Lizzie Borden's hometown, and where her infamous murders, the infamous murders occurred. And, many have claimed that if you go in her house still stands. I was actually there last month. While many claim you can actually either see her or her stepmother's ghost in the old family home, Lizzie really is only scratching the surface of the murders that have taken place in Fall River. Like, to be frank, she's not even the most interesting one. In my opinion, the more interesting murders that took place in the city were between 1979 and 1980. And these murders were said to have taken place in the forest. The victims were Doreen Levesque, Barbara Raposa, and Karen Marsden. All three were said to have engaged in prostitution with a man named Carl Drew, and I think she was a former prostitute, but at this point she was an up-and-coming pimp who worked with them, called Robin Murphy. Allegedly, Drew was also the leader of a satanic cult that he and Murphy would perform rituals for in the forest, like rituals for worshiping the devil. Many witnesses have claimed to come across clearings with blood left over from offerings to the devil. Investigators believe Drew murdered these three girls as a sacrifice to Satan, and is alleged to have even played soccer with Marsden's skull. Although Drew is now serving a life sentence, Murphy was initially paroled for her part in the murders in 2004, but after a parole violation in 2011, she was sent back to prison in Framingham, and yet there are still those who speculate that the cult still exists and meets for rituals in the densest parts of the forest. On top of the satanic cult, there have been alleged eyewitness reports of other strange activity throughout that area. Witnesses have come forward allegedly seeing UFOs, ghosts, giant snakes, and even puckwudgies. When traveling through the wilderness, allegedly, even Ronald Reagan was reported to have seen strange lights in the sky from within the forest. Alright, so I brought my girlfriend Ingrid on because there's a conspiracy theory going around she told me about in regards to state forests in general, and the Freetown-Fall River State Forest would actually be a part of this conspiracy. So this is Ingrid.
Hey everyone, it's Ingrid. How are you?
So Ingrid, why don't you jump into it? Tell us what this conspiracy is. Give us the history of it.
All right. So the issue is that we don't know if it's the same monster or if it's different ones. But according to which area you're learning the tale from, it's either a Bigfoot or a puckwudgie. But the conspiracy is that all across the different national state parks, there's monsters in there. So you don't want to go in. And if you do go in, you might not come back out. There have been tales of certain, specifically children actually being the ones that made it out. But the thing is that President Roosevelt specifically, he knew from his own experiences while he was out hunting, being the avid outdoorsman he is. Everyone knows the famous tales of him. Well, there's even more famous ones, and you might not have heard of them. He, on two specific occasions, there's been written in great detail about his experiences where he saw a monster come and kill one man and try to kill one other friend of his. And he knew that there's monsters in there. And he decided to keep the national park systems as an area to keep them in there and separated from us. That's their territory. This is our territory. It was a drawing of the lines. He wasn't necessarily working with the monsters or anything. They're not like that. They are monsters. But if you go into their territory, that's where these stories come from. So it's all across America, all the national parks. There's something there. And here in specifically Fall River, in the state forest there, we see the pukwudgies there. And that's, that comes from the Wampanoag, I think is how you pronounce it, tribe. And they specifically were calling them that. And they're, 4 feet around tall creatures. They're hairy, they've got claws, leathery hands, and just evil, angry faces, and just, they're terrifying. Specifically here, there have been stories of suicides happening from people saying that the pukwudgies have pushed them off of cliffs here at the state forest park. You don't want to go around there. There's been people personally saying, in the groups, in the Fall River groups, I've noticed saying that they just feel weird. They've heard things there. They're just walking their dogs and they just know that they're being watched. They hear things. They see things out of the corners of their eyes. And, like I said, President Roosevelt, he knew about all of this, and he really is a great guy trying to protect the Americans. So that's the conspiracy. That's the thought. They keep the monsters there. And it doesn't matter if it's big national parks, like the Smoky Mountains, like he had one of his experiences there, or it could be, a small one like here, the State River or State Forest and Fall River. So, that's just what the tale is.
So you mentioned there were some events of like people like disappearing and some of them making it back. Regardless of whether it's Fall River or one of these other state parks or state forests, do you have any other examples or?
So just the ones that I've been reading about, there's the big ones that stand out for me were the 2 children, and one of them, she was a young girl. She was around 4 years old, and she was, this is the one that Roosevelt heard of, I believe, and he's the one that went investigated that specific park. I can't recall at the moment. But she was taken overnight and she was dragged away by what she calls Mr. Wolfman. That's all she calls him, or Mr. Wolf it was. And he was described just as that, like a 5 foot tall, like hairy creature. But he didn't necessarily hurt her. What he did was he fed her berries throughout the night until he released her in the morning. And then the second story, the other child, it was a boy, and his mother, I think it was a boy, his mother saw this bear-like creature drag the child away, and then the weird thing was that it was walking upright and cradling the child. And then later on the next day, he was found about, I think it was 6 miles or so away from where he was taken, and again unharmed, or minimally harmed, just scratches, and again fed berries throughout the night until he was found. So it's just the children seem to be the ones, but the people, the adults that were harmed or killed, they were not allowed to make it out.
I don't know, it's interesting. It kind of sounds, if we jump back to Littleton, I talked about the White Witch in this episode, but there's another legend of the Bear Man, and I don't really have many specifics about him other than he's just like a spirit that supposedly the Native Americans knew and talked about, but his legend kind of persists to this day a little bit.
Oh, I didn't know about that one in Littleton.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to be, tales of, like, bear-like creature sized, hairy, but the thing is that those ones do differentiate from the ones about Bigfoot, because we all know the Bigfoot ones, and those are very obviously and widely told about being as him, Bigfoot. But these other ones, they are not attributed to being a Bigfoot sighting. So that's the other difference that I'm noticing, too, between all the stories that we both, have known about. They're different in the way that, they're smaller usually, because the Bigfoot, they're like, 6 foot more. But these ones are, more mid-height. And they also, the Bigfoot stories, they seem to they don't seem to do much. We don't really seem to hear many attacking of Bigfoot stories, rather than just sightings or creepy, knocking sounds and stuff. But with these ones attack. These ones that are said to be, pukwudgies or whichever other ones, they are known to attack. They're terrifying. You definitely beware. They're known to play tricks on you. They're known to lure you into the forest, and then once they get you there, they appear and they grab you out of the fog. These ones are definitely different than Bigfoot, and definitely just not something to take lightly. If you're not a believer about, these myths and stuff, maybe you're a little bit of a believer, but if you are a little bit at least, these ones are not something to just, oh, I heard about this, let's go check it out. Kind of don't believe that. Don't check it out. They will check you out. You don't have to ask for them to come,
And so naturally, I'm going to the State Forest probably next week to check it out.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, let's hope you come back because you're not a child, so you're not really appearing to be guaranteed safety. Bring a weapon.
All right, well, thank you for coming on and talking about it. Is there anything else you wanted to, mention or bring up about this?
No, I just, nothing I can recall at the moment. It was just really fun reading about that, Roosevelt story, and definitely check it out. Definitely go read more about it. It's hard to find specifically about it. You'll have to type in, Roosevelt Supernatural. But, his stories are definitely interesting, and he gives very detailed accounts. And, being an awesome president, it's definitely something interesting to connect with, one of the coolest presidents, and natural history, state history, and, conspiracy theories about the country. It's pretty interesting, so definitely go check it out.
Well, thanks for coming on and talking to us about it. I know you got some more stuff to do for Sword Time Apparel, so I'm going to let you get back to that. But I do really appreciate you coming on here and telling us your knowledge, because I am not well-versed in conspiracy theories, especially in comparison to you.
Yeah, well, I read a lot, don't I? Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you today.